Okay. Good evening. I'd like to welcome you to the Overview and Scrutiny Management Committee of the Woking Borough Council. We are broadcasting this meeting onto YouTube. Can I ask all members to put their cameras on unless they're speaking? Please make sure that mobile phones, Alexa or other devices are silenced. And let's ensure that we have a good-tempered meeting and we don't go virtual. Viral, whatever the word is. Okay, Pauline Hellier-Simons is running late, who chairs this committee. So in her absence, I will be beginning the meeting. And the first item is looking at, of course, are there any other apologies, Neil?
None received, Chairman.
Thank you. Members, if we can go through the minutes of the previous meeting on the 20th of January. Surprisingly, that's only a shorter set of minutes. Just, if you've got anything to say, could you speak up about page 5? Do we have any comments about page 6? About page 7? Page 8? Page 9? Oh, page 8 was the end. Right, excellent. In that case, the minutes are approved. And we'll move on to any declarations of interest. Does anybody have any declarations of interest?
Sorry, Madam Vice Chairman. As you are all aware, I'm a trustee of the Citizens Advice Board, but I don't think it's in these minutes. I don't think it's in this anywhere this time.
No,
Thank you.
That's not a pecuniary interest, Emma, is it? Because I know you're all volunteers doing excellent work at the Citizens Advice. Right. Do we have any public questions, Neil?
We don't.
Do we have any member questions?
We do have a member question. So Pauline has the answer. So maybe if Gary wants to ask it, then we'll see if Pauline joins the meeting.
Yeah, I'm happy to do that.
Well, I was going to suggest, Gary, would you be happy to ask a question at a later point in the agenda? If we could insert you
yes,
when Pauline arrives.
I'm more than happy with that. I'll switch off my camera, go back to sleep and let you carry on.
That's very generous. Thank you very much, Gary. Okay, so item 75 is Q3, the 2021 performance report. This is on page
Madam Chairman, I'm sorry to interrupt you. I've just got a text from Pauline to say that her Wi-Fi has gone totally down. Could you start the meeting? Oh, yeah, right. Anyway, yes. Okay, sorry.
Okay, do you want to tell Pauline she can dial in and make sure she's got the numbers? I think Neil or Callum will be able to assist with that. Thank you, Emma. Right, so we've got officers attending this evening to present this report, I believe.
That's right, thank you, Chair.
Okay. Would you like to take us through it, and then members will be able to ask questions?
Yeah, I will do. Thank you. So I'm Laura Callan, Strategy and Planning Manager, and I'd like to introduce tonight actually Will Roper, who's on the call, who joined us a couple of weeks ago as Customer Insight and Performance Manager, and he's going to introduce the report. Will's likely to be here for a number of meetings now moving forward, so I'll let Will introduce the report and then we can take questions after. Thank you.
Good evening.
Do you want to put your camera on, Will, or do you want to share your screen?
Is my camera?
I can see Will.
His camera's on. Yeah, I can see Will.
So I'll happily share my screen. Just 2 seconds. There we go. Where's the present button? Can everyone see
bottom
that?
Right. Bottom right, next to the zoom function. It's the tiny little, sorry, to the left of the zoom function. That button.
Excellent. Sorry. Just learning how to use Microsoft again after a lot of years using Google. Right. Good evening, everybody. Thank you very much, Laura and Madam Vice Chairman. My name is Will Roper. I'm your new Customer Insight Analyst and Performance Manager. So I'll just very briefly take you over this second page of this report, which just gives the sort of general flavour of the overall performance. I would suggest it's generally a very good performance in the last quarter. As you can see, the overwhelming majority of the KPIs, 60% of them are currently ranked as being green, with 20% or 10 in amber and 11, so again, roughly 20% in red. 56% of these KPIs have performed better than in the previous quarter, with 33% of them, or 20 KPIs, adverse to the previous quarter. And of those KPIs that are currently ranked as red, it should be noted that the majority of them are COVID impacts. And you'll see further down in the report any COVID impact has been noted with a small COVID symbol next to the KPI, so you can see that that those are in there. So overall, I'd suggest it's a good performance in Q3, and that's really it, just as the kind of top line overview.
Andrew, would you like to go first? Okay, I'm not sure. I'm unmuted. So
You are.
we're going
We're just waiting on Andrew.
then Sarah, then Paul.
I beg your pardon. Yep. Thank you very much. Indeed, Will. The table, I think, is particularly helpful. I think it might be the first time that we've seen it summarised, performance summarised in this manner. I want to start off, if I may, with a very simple, probably very naive question. In the table, there's a line which says no DOT. Could you explain what that is? I'm sure there's a simple explanation, but hello.
Shall I take that? I'll take that question.
Sure.
So yes, if it's no direction of travel,
that's fine.
Yeah, it's no direction of travel is what it means.
Not a problem.
So yeah.
Okay. I'd like to ask 3 questions, if I might. 3 more questions. It's reported on page 11 that there's now a greater level of clarity over central government financial support for COVID-related activities. Is this still the case? And are there any concerns about the timeliness with which payments are received and government's commitment to funding long-term COVID-related activities? My second questions both relate to homelessness and accommodation. Page 12, RA5A, percentage of homeless preventions. What exactly is involved there? I think I can sort of get a feeling for it, but I just want it clarified. What exactly is a percentage of homeless preventions? And with a target of 50%, but this is halved from 67% to 34% in the last quarter. Are there any signs that actions being implemented that are referred to in the report have started to reverse this trend at all? And linked to that, RA5D, the proportion of applicants supported into settled accommodation has fallen from 40%. I must say that target of 40% doesn't seem very ambitious to me, but it's fallen from 40% down to 25%. I'm concerned, about the human consequences, of that. And I'm just wondering also, finally, whether it might be possible at some future point to have some data on the scale of the problem of homelessness. We've got percentage figures referred to, but not numbers of individuals. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Yes, thanks for those questions. Unfortunately, we haven't got anyone from the homeless and housing team here. So I think probably it would be best answered by them. I think in terms of homeless preventions and how people are supported into settled accommodation, it's quite detailed what the duties are on the council and how they need to work through that. And so I wouldn't want to offer too much of my advice, which would be the same as you. It wouldn't be enough of an understanding. So I think I'd need to take these questions away, and it may be helpful if we ask perhaps Simon Price or one of the homeless team to come back and answer those questions, or we'll follow up in writing as we'd normally do.
And the question about government funding for COVID-related expenditure?
Yes.
Sorry
about that. So yes, so as we've reported, there has been more certainty since the Q2 reporting, and so I think there is a bit more certainty in the position. But again, those detailed questions, I would need to ask someone from the finance team to come back to you. On the call tonight, we've got no one here who'd be able to answer that, I'm afraid. Thank you, but we will come back to you.
Thank you.
I'm back in now. Are you on the agenda item about the KPIs?
We are. Gary very kindly agreed that we would take his question after this item, because we knew you'd make it in somehow.
Well, I'm back in, hopefully permanently now.
Very happy to hand over the chair to you. Pauline, Andrew's just spoken. The next is Sarah, then Paul, then Rochelle.
Okay, so I'll take over now then. So it was Sarah.
Hi, good evening. Thank
Sorry
you.
about that.
No, that's okay. I'm glad you're with us. And I just want to say thank you to Laura and Will, and welcome, Will. Nice to meet you virtually. What I wanted to do was actually, because I appreciate that questions are difficult to answer without the service managers here. I've actually got a list of requests or suggestions for some of these KPIs more than anything, which I hope is okay. Firstly, CIC5, which is visits to libraries, which is something we discussed last time, because it's obviously understandable why it's not able to meet the targets with COVID. And we did discuss maybe making some changes to actually make it reflect actually what's happening. And I noticed that's happened for RA3, which is visits to leisure centres. I would suggest that maybe while people will be going back to libraries hopefully soon, you might not get as many people due to the uncertainty and nervousness. So I would suggest that we look at maybe a target that's achievable, because to be smart, it has to be achievable. And while I appreciate the physical library space is going to be vital to part of the COVID recovery, I wonder if this is an opportunity to maybe have a look at another KPI that looks at how we enhance the digital side further and build upon that, so maybe an extra KPI there. The PG8, which is the percentage of planning applications determined in statutory timescales, I find it very hard to understand why we have 60% as a target. Not only does that seem very low, we're actually achieving well above 90%. So I would like to see in the future that KPI have a much higher target, please. The PG26 air quality, I'm pleased to see that there. I just wanted to highlight, it says in the report that nitrogen dioxide is the main pollutant of concern. That isn't the case, particulate matter is, so that's not technically right. I would hope to see that once we have the PM 2.5 monitors going in, a KPI to be developed around that specifically, please. But also, I'd like to find out from the service area about how they're actually coming up with those figures, because obviously you've got several monitors at the moment in those areas, and I don't know if it's an average, because the issue, I mean, to give an example, I've picked one of the monitors out, which is WAK 838, which is the monitor by Giggling Spring Shoethead. It has exceeded maximum levels for more than 5 years continuously. That's just one example of a monitor that is. So at the moment, that KPI makes it look like everything's okay, and there are still big issues. So something to feedback there. There's no KPI around biodiversity net gain. And that's something that will need to be established in line with new government legislation, and something we should be doing anyway. So I'd like to see a KPI around that, please. And PG 15, I've got two more. So this is one of them. PG 15, adults who walk or cycle at least once a week. I'm not happy with this KPI, I'm afraid, because what we're trying to change here under the climate stuff is habitual travel. We're trying to get people to walk and cycle more than once a week. And is it okay, Chair, if I just share my screen to show a diagram that Watch have done using the same information? Is that okay?
Yeah, that'd be a good idea.
Okay, fantastic. Thank you. Let me just do this. I just bring it up. Okay, so this is from Watch Wokingham, which is a cycling group. So this is the same source of data that is used in the KPIs. And as you can see, it looks at people who walk or cycle once a month, once a week, 3 times a week, and 5 times a week. And as you can see with the cycling, the trajectory is declining year on year. It moves about a little bit with the walking, but what the KPI shows that everything is absolutely fine. If you look at the big picture holistically, it isn't fine. And I think we need to be looking at a KPI that actually reflects what's really happening. So I just wanted to share that. The one other thing is PG 16, which is enabling sustainable travel, and it's specifically greenways. I believe this KPI is in the wrong place, because greenways are more about leisure travel rather than utility. So it shouldn't really be under keeping the borough moving section, but more under the health section. And as such, there needs to be a KPI specifically about cycleways for utility travel. So those are my main comments, and I appreciate I've rambled off a lot of those, but I would appreciate if those were fed back to the different service areas for further thought. Is that okay, Laura and Will?
Absolutely, I think that's the best thing to do. Thank you.
So if I email those to you as well, and happy to show that graph as well, but thank you very much.
Thank you.
I think it's me next, Pauline.
Yes, it is. It conked me out again. Yes, it is, Paul. I'm back now. I've put my phone on now, so if it goes again, I'll just lift my phone up. Yes. I thought
you were going to try and ring me up or something then. Well, welcome back anyway, Pauline, and welcome Laura and Will.
Oh, it's mute yourself, Pauline. Mute yourself, because otherwise we're going to get the double echo.
Oh. Are you muted? Yeah, super. Okay. I've got some questions. Page 35, PG 19. If recycled, reused. Oh, am I echoing still? No. Okay. If recycled, reused, composted waste has gone down by 6% since the previous quarter, and you've given the reasons why, but PG 20 landfill has also reduced, which is good news. But where has the residual gone? Because there is that reduction overall, and it's probably gone into incinerated, but we don't capture incinerated waste anywhere in the KPIs. So it could be, for example, that landfill is going down, but it's being incinerated. And I think we need to have a KPI which is capturing the whole picture. It includes the incineration as well. So that's my first one. My second one, page 37, PG 26, air quality. The Borough Council is required to produce an annual report, which it submits to DEFRA on an annual basis, usually around June time for the previous year. So where are the figures for Twyford Crossroads and the M4 for 2018 when you've produced DEFRA reports for them? Why are they missing? I also question the data that is actually been produced in the KPIs tonight, because I can't see how they line up with what's in the DEFRA report. So I've got a similar issue to what Sarah was pointing out. So it'd be useful to have a discussion offline about that. Page 38, PPG 13. I'd like to see what's behind the numbers on there, because you've got the various phases and there's 74% of this and 13% of that. But it doesn't say which particular sites or phases are behind or are on target. So I want to see how those are actually made up. And again, offline is fine. Page 39, PG 14. The council has a target to deliver 1,000 electric vehicle charging units by 2025. Where's that come from? Because I can't find that anywhere, and I can't see it in the climate change action plan anywhere. And page 39, PG 15, the figure for 80.4% relates to the 2018-19 data published by the DFT and contained in table CW0301, but you are showing it for 2019. So I don't think those figures are right. So those are my questions. Thank you.
Laura, can you manage all of those at once? Have a go.
No, sorry, I can't. But thank you, Paul, for sending through that previous question to me about the vehicle charging points. We did try to find out about that before the meeting, but unfortunately I can't clarify anything. So I will have to come back to you on all those questions. We'll bring that back to the service, and we can do that by way of an update. But thank you. I've noted all of those.
Okay, thank you very much.
Will you send Paul written questions then?
Yes,
we'll okay with you then, Paul.
Yeah, we may need to have a discussion on some of those, particularly around the air quality, understanding where those figures have come from, yeah. And maybe on the PPG 13 as well. Mm-hmm. Okay, thank you.
Jim's turn.
Who did you say, Pauline?
She said you, Jim.
Oh, it was me. Sorry, I'm struggling to hear her.
I thought I was next after Paul, but okay.
Do you want to go next? Is it me?
Oh, that's sorry. Pauline. She was the one who told me. I was sure who was next. Was it Jim or myself? Pauline.
Okay. Either of you then.
Someone go.
Ladies first.
Okay.
Michelle, you go.
I'll do that then. The number of complaints received on page 13. I'm just curious. It says that most of them are due to housing maintenance. How does this compare to quarter 3 last year, 1920, to get a better idea? Because if it's all happening because things happen in the winter, or it's happening because of COVID, because people are home, I'm just curious why we've gotten that many more complaints about housing maintenance than we had previously, or are the houses all just falling down right now because of something? That was my first question. Do you want the second one now also, or should I wait for an answer to that?
I should do one question at a time. It's easier.
Okay.
Thank you. I can give a bit of an update to that. So yes, my understanding is the issue with the repairs and things for housing was during periods of lockdown and difficulties in actually being able to access premises that caused some delays that had some impacts then on the complaints that were coming through to us. That's my understanding. I can look into that in a bit more detail as well and ensure that that's clear. I would need to go back and look at those other quarters in a bit more detail and come back to you about that.
Laura, it's Jackie. Chair, would you like me just to clarify that as well for you? Sorry, I just thought, just to support what Laura said, it was exactly because of that, because of the COVID. The contractors are finding it really difficult to get round to all of the sites because of social distancing, because of the extra cleaning and stuff that they had to do, which obviously created more dissatisfaction. Again, I can help Laura find out what it was in the previous quarters, but essentially that's what's happened for this quarter.
Okay, my second question then is more about the delivery of projects and how COVID has affected that. In particular, some of the roadworks projects are way behind delivery dates. We're not even going close to them, and I'm surprised that we don't have anything listing that right offhand, because Woking is providing some of these things, and delays are very long, but they were long before this. So I'm just trying to figure out what's going on. Is anybody there, or have I lost everything?
Laura?
Hi. I'd need to get detail from the service about that.
That would be fine. I'm just curious because I realize the Winnish Relief Road is about 5 years behind schedule, or maybe 10, depending on which one you want to talk about. But other roadworks and other projects that were supposed to be finished already aren't. And I'm just finding out why, that's all. And why don't we have KPIs like that in this as well? Because it's Woking delivering these functions, and you know how far behind the town center regeneration came and how many other things, but we'd like to see how well we're performing to what we expect.
Thank you. I'll feed that back and we'll take that into account in terms of future monitoring, but I'll get some clarification on those specific points. Thank you.
I'm sorry to interrupt, Rochelle. I don't know if you know, but you're sharing your screen.
I didn't think I was doing that. It seems to be doing all sorts of interesting things right now. I'm trying to kill it.
I was busy seeing if I had the function to stop that.
Sorry.
Okay, I'm not trying to share my screen. It's doing it anyway. I hope we're not in hand for council. I may have to go out and come.
We can hear her and I can see her. Anyway, Jim now.
Thank you, Chair. Firstly, welcome, Will. That's something I think we've needed for quite a while, and good luck with the job. Again, we have a large number of KPIs, and that results in a huge number of questions that come out almost ad hoc, which provides a little bit of pressure on Laura. I'd like to propose for consideration. Can you still hear me? My screen's changing again. That we actually try to split these KPI reviews down so that we take almost a directorship at a time and have the owning leads officers there as well, because that way, if we have an issue or a concern or a need for clarification on a specific topic, we have chance to ask that rather than send it all off with poor Laura. She must have very good shorthand skills to capture some of the questions that have come out tonight. That's one question. The second one is that, and I think it was raised earlier, but I'd just like to say again that there's a number of these KPIs which would benefit from having numerical figures with it as well as percentage, because we look at a big percentage change, but the actual volume of transactions are actually quite low. And lastly, Laura and perhaps Jackie, I know that a lot of work's going into GovMetrics, and I just wondered when we'll be seeing some of those KPIs, because I think they're going to be really useful to us.
Thank you, Jim. Should if I just say yes, we're continually looking to improve the reporting, and so those comments are helpful, and we'll take those into account in certainly what we can do for the next quarter. We will, but we will be looking to make sure that you're getting the information that you need and a better way of dealing with the meeting and all the questions too. So thank you. But Jackie, do you want to come back on the question for you?
Sure, yeah, absolutely. So yes, the GovMetrics, we went live last Wednesday with the first phase, which is web. So we're starting to get some data coming through now. Not so much, because obviously we haven't done any external comms. That's due to go out next week. So we're trying to encourage our customers as much as possible to give us feedback on our website. The next phase, which will happen by the end of March, will be over the phones. So obviously then we'll really see some feedback starting to come through because customers that phone up will be offered the chance to give us some feedback on their interaction with us after every phone call into the council. And then we will look at emails and then online forms. So we're kind of doing it in a phased way so that we can manage the feedback as it comes in. We can make sure the process is robust and we capture everything and we don't miss anything. So in answer to your question, Jim, once we've got those channels, the feedback coming through on those channels, we can then look at a baseline and then set some KPIs and obviously feedback to you guys some meaningful data that really gives us some insight on experiences.
And you know I'm a full supporter of this because I think it will actually give us meaningful data.
It will.
And things that we can actually use to really improve things.
Absolutely, much more than numbers. I mean, it gives us numbers, but there's insight underneath of that, which actually gives us a view of the customer experience too. So absolutely.
And again, the offer of if you need any help with that still stands.
Fab. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you, Guy, and then Abdul.
Sorry, Pauline. There was I put a proposal. I put a proposal forward about
carry on.
Splitting the.
You carry on, Jim.
Rather than doing this on a big block of all the KPIs, to split them down so we have opportunity to work with the officers about ensuring that we've got the right KPIs and understanding the issues and the trends and the actions against each of the directorships, rather than trying to do it all in one big lump.
Is this, sorry, Chair, if I can say something.
I think Pauline might have frozen again.
I think she's gone again.
Alison, take over.
It's a proposal for the committee. That's all I'm suggesting.
Is that a motion you're putting to us?
If I can word it better than what I've just done, I will do, yeah.
Andy, what were you going to say on this? I suspect you were going to comment on this.
I was just going to say, it's not really the function of this committee to deep dive into this overarching report, is it? We are just supposed to skim this.
That's what I was.
Well,
we're supposed to be
one of the items on the agenda tonight is, of course, creating the forward programme, not just for OS management, but for all of the 3 subcommittees. So, Jim, is this something you would like to see as a major agenda item on a future committee, or something you may propose as a task and finish group?
I just think that when we get presented the KPIs, we've had a number of questions tonight across a whole range of topics. I think by splitting it down, we can focus those questions better than we currently do. I'm not saying we go through each of the KPIs. I'm saying that we have a better opportunity to focus the questions, to get a clearer understanding, and to do it with officers rather than all through Laura.
Can I ask a question?
Well, I mean, the KPIs that relate to customer services are looked at in detail by that committee. I know HOSC looks at in detail the KPIs that relate to them, and I think Guy can probably add here that there's quite a lot of KPIs that Guy's committee look at in the quarterly reports.
Yes, I'll just go with yes. But what I was just going to add on this is that the role of this committee in regards to this particular management point of view, apologise for the background noise now, that what we've got to do, Sky, one moment please. What we've got is, this is basically the high level overview, and this is and Neil, Callum, correct me wrong, this is basically something we have to do as part of this, as the management committee, is to look at the KPIs of the entire council, as it were, and then once we've seen that view, we then take let's take fly tipping as an example, as I can just see it as the first green item on my screen right now. That would be then something that we would go, okay, we need to look more detail at fly tipping. We need to refer to that to community and corporate. They didn't do their investigation, and then they report back to us, as it were. This committee can then effectively take on a role to do much more in depth and key aspects of it, like we did with the poverty when we doing the COVID response. But at the same time, I do actually agree with what Jim is suggesting. Yeah. And this is where I think we need where a working group might be a good idea, because there are aspects of the KPIs that are a little, Paul and Sarah have made some points and taken half of my points away, as well as always what happens to me, to effectively drive a better understanding on what we can do. If that makes sense.
Exactly what I was trying to articulate.
Okay, so I can see a lot of hands up. I think I'm going to go to Andy Croy next.
So you've already taken mine, and I didn't take my hand down. Thank you.
Oh, okay. Abdul.
Thank you, Chair. And hi, Laura. My question regarding A7, it says 12-month review didn't happen. Just like to see if you can briefly, if you do know the answers, why. And the other one is RA5A, we talked about it earlier on, homeless prevention, but coming from John Kaiser's, I mean, we've done wonderful. That shouldn't be in there, to be honest. That shouldn't be read at all in the way I've looked at it. So I think this shouldn't be in there. It should be, much more better, not red, at least green, as far as I'm concerned, And the thirdly, CS1s, about the surge in number, second subsequent time within 24 months. I know it's 24 months is a long way plus COVID. If you could just touch down, that would be great. Thank you, Laura.
Laura?
Thank you. Yes, I probably can't answer completely, and I'll need to bring some of those back. But perhaps in terms of the homeless preventions, you may be thinking of our the work we're doing with rough sleepers to get them off the streets and to ensure that they were in through the all-in policy. So there are differences in what we're recording here. So I will go and get some clarification about that and ensure that it's clear what these homeless measures are reporting on, and perhaps we will need a homeless representative to clarify that. We can either share that or they can come back to another meeting, but I'll take that away. Thank you.
Thank you, Laura. Andy?
I think Andy said he'd finished his question.
I finished. My hand's not up on my screen.
Carry on. How'd you finish, Abdul? How'd you finish? You had.
Thank you.
Okay, Andy then.
Chair, Andy said he'd finished.
I've definitely finished.
Andy had finished. Would you mind if I quickly came in on the point that Jim raised, please, Chair? Sorry, you're on mute.
Yeah, go ahead, Sarah.
Sorry, thanks. It was just on the point that Jim raised, and I agree. The way I sort of prepped this item is knowing full well that the officers that would be able to answer the questions won't be in this meeting, and therefore I focused what I was going to say on improvements to the KPIs, and I agree. I think there are a number of KPIs that need further development or shifting or having some targets set. And I think a task and finish group on something like that would actually be a good idea to have that overarching look, as Guy suggested. The way I see this report is it is more high level. A lot of these things, we are going to go in depth into some of the other scrutiny committees, but I think it does give us a chance to look holistically at what's going on and raise any areas of concern that are either happening at the moment or in the future that we may want to request reports coming for. I think the challenge, if we actually had if we split down into the different service areas and had the service managers there for each of those, we actually wouldn't be able to get through these quarterly. It is the problem, because we don't have enough meetings to actually do that. So I think I would agree with having these as a high level holistic view to then further suggest what we have going further forward, and maybe something that we can look deeper at the actual development of the KPIs that we have. And I don't know if that's kind of what you're after, Jim, but that's something what I would be able to support.
Sarah, I think it's more the fact that there's so much good information here, even at a top level, and to be able to deal with it all as one big mass is too big. I think we need to split it down and phase it. Not lots of time spent on it, but enough to be able to get that insight almost by directorship rather than one big mass, because I think there's too much information there tonight for us to actually look at it properly.
No, I get that. I think the thing is that when it comes to the children's services stuff, I guess that will be going to the children's services overview and scrutiny, and the health stuff will go to HOSC. There are other things that will go to corporate and community, so I'm guessing that that's where they will be. Was there something you were specifically thinking, a format of doing this otherwise?
No, it's purely, I tried to read through most of that stuff tonight, and I know it's dealt in other places, but even at a top level, there's too much information. You asked a number of questions, Paul's asked a number of questions again tonight, and we do that every time we get the KPIs in. And Laura has to go off and talk to the directors and the officers involved. I just think it doesn't give opportunity for us to focus and to support the other subcommittees.
Okay, thanks for those views. I've got Malcolm now wanting to speak. And Guy, your hand is still up, do you?
Yeah, because I'm still waiting to ask a few questions, but also I've got another point.
Malcolm first.
Yes, I'm interested in the Clean and Green Borough one, specifically PG19. All that section there is wonderfully in green. Everything's better. Apart from the PG19 percentage of household waste reused, recycled and composted, is there any reason why that particularly is so bad? Does it relate to the amount collected or that it's not being processed as efficiently? It just stands out as the one. That's one question. The second one hangs off almost off the back of it. Further down, PG 21, percentage of waste recycled from the curbside. I imagine that includes the paper and cardboard, which we know under the old system can get wet and then nobody takes it, so it's a waste. And yet that one comes out nice and green with a good number, and yet the percentage of household waste is red. Can someone explain that, please?
Thank you. I'm just reviewing the narrative for those particular indicators. So as you rightly pointed out, there has been an issue, hasn't there, with that collection from the curbside in terms of being able to recycle that. And so hopefully there'll be some improvements with the new containers that are coming in. But with regards to that, the other indicator, if it's not clear in that narrative, then again, I will need to go back and get some more information on that for you. Thank you.
I thought the PG21 would be the one that related to the wet paper and cardboard, because that's waste recycled from the curbside. That I thought would be the risky one. 19 is just seems to be a general category of household waste. That's why I couldn't relate to it. But if you're going to clarify those, check and clarify. Yeah. I'd appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Right, that's all, Malcolm, is that all?
Yes, that's all for me. Thank you.
Yeah,
I'll put my hand down.
Thank you, Chair. Most of my questions have now been asked. The only one I had was in regards to fly tipping, because I know there was an article that appeared in the BBC today or yesterday describing fly tipping. Now, basically, I just wanted to know where we were standing in regards. You can see it's clearly gone up since the middle of 2019, 2020. I would like to know a couple of points. Basically, the impact of closing the recycling centres during the start of COVID, how that has had an impact, but also mitigation factors. But this may be something that I have to bring to community and corporate as a separate item in addition. But continuing on from the comments that were made by Jim and what Paul and Sarah basically made as well, this is a vital part of basically what this committee does in terms of understanding where we're fitting on the RAG status, and it's things like two quarters in red is something that should then be investigated by the appropriate committee. But there's been a lot of, I need to go back to the relevant departments tonight, and that doesn't seem like the most efficient use of our time. And that's not a slight on the officers that have put this together. The detail is here. It is incredibly detailed, but but that's just what is going on. The why is what is missing. So I think that a task and finish group does need to be established, so that we can work with officers to try and make this better, because the whole point of overview and scrutiny is to overview and scrutinize. The scrutiny part should be done either by this committee or by the relevant subcommittees, when we've basically got, let's say, a double red status. And effectively, we should have, if there is something where there is a dramatic change outside of COVID related issues, we should have an officer who actually knows that particular directory to actually answer those questions for us on the night, and then we can choose whether to not refer it to a separate committee. I think that should be the process that we move forward to going forward, because this is great and all, but we've gotten the data, we've came back with this, and we've had about 25 questions that need to be referred back to us by further questions.
Anyone got any comments on that? Guy, if you were wanting to set up a task and finish group, is that something that your committee could do?
It needs to be the purview of this committee coming down. I'm happy to sit on it in that regard, but it will need support, and I hope that the officers will at least Will. I hope Will is at least appreciative in what I'm trying to suggest here. Yeah, I think that's the most important aspect.
How many meetings do you think you would need? Because our officers are under a lot of pressure, remember.
Unfortunately, Pauline, that is how long is a piece of string.
Can I make a suggestion?
Sorry, yeah.
Sorry, I was going to suggest that I think a task and finish group could be a good idea, because part of the things I've raised tonight are actually, the construction of the KPIs that we're measuring, and we've got to get those right first. My suggestion would be that we have a task and finish group of 5 counsellors, and there should be 1 from HOSC, 1 from Children's Services, 1 from Community and Corporate, and 2 from Management, so that you actually get the full oversight, because people from Children's Services are going to want to be a part of developing those, and vice versa, with all the others. It's just an idea, just a suggestion I'm throwing out there, but to make sure that we have people representing all the different areas that the KPIs cover.
I was about to go to Neil, but I see he's got his hand up anyway. So, Neil, let's have your comments, please, because I know you're very aware of the pressures on officers.
So could I suggest that we bring a report to the next meeting? We could talk to Laura and the other colleagues in between, and then bring some options to the next meeting, including the ones that Guy, Sarah and Jim have put forwards.
That seems reasonable.
With that. Is that okay with you, Guy?
That would be good.
That seems reasonable. It then gives us effectively a set of basically it enables us to create a set of terms of reference. It will then probably need to be maybe set up for the new municipal year, because we might go into PERDA. But yeah.
Yeah. Very, very last comment on this then, Andrew, because we must move on now. Thank you.
Yes. Yeah, just for clarification, the purpose of the task and finish group would not be to make recommendations on KPIs, but it is to.
We're not having a task and finish group at the moment. We're going to have a report back to the next committee.
Okay, that's fine.
Okay.
That's fine.
Sorry to interrupt you, and I'm sorry I keep disappearing to the moon, but thanks for Alison for coxing and boxing with me. Okay, then that's the end of that item. We have one recommendation attached to it, which is to endorse the report for the period of October to December 2020. Is there anyone that disagrees with us doing that? We have read it, we've discussed it. Are you happy to endorse it? Anyone against? I've got Neil Carr's hand up and Guy's, so I'm sure Neil can't be against. Maybe, Guy, you need to take your hand down unless you want to vote against. Thank you.
Apologies, it was stuck. The new system is really slow.
I know, it's terrible, isn't it? So nobody is against. So in that case, yes, please, Neil, if you don't mind, that would be extremely useful. Right, now then, I think we need to go back to the member's question. We'll go back now to item 74, the member's question. Gary, would you like to ask it, please?
Yeah, thank you, Pauline. To speed it up, I'm happy to just say, ask the question in my name, as you should have all have read it, if that helps.
Yes, indeed. Thank you. That's really helpful. The answer, you imply in your question that CRWG is not democratic, and I'm afraid I don't agree with that, and I'll explain why. There are no legal regulations around the process for reviewing and updating the Constitution. It's up to each local authority to decide its own arrangements. The Constitutional Review Working Party was set up by the Council on the 27th of October 2005. I hadn't realised it was that old. The Council agreed at that time that its purpose was to review the whole of the Constitution in order to provide further consistency and clarification. The terms of reference of the CRWG set out more broadly its purpose, stating that it will undertake this role by A, reviewing areas in the Constitution to ensure that they're fit for purpose and put forward appropriate changes. B, receiving requests to review certain areas of the Constitution. C, considering changes proposed by members, officers or committees. And D, recommending proposed changes to the Council for approval. The Council agreed that the membership of CRWG should be 4 members and should be politically balanced. Members are appointed to the CRWG at the annual Council meeting, and I don't recall, Councillor Cowan, that you raised the issue about membership at that point. Maybe you did, my memory is not that strong on that sort of thing, but I assume that you agreed it at the time, as the rest of us probably did. The Overview and Scrutiny Committee is indeed tasked with holding executive to account. Since neither the leader, nor his deputy, nor any member of the executive are on any of the scrutiny committees, it's well able to hold them to account. In addition, the Constitutional Working Group is not about political scoring, but about process and procedure. Therefore, there is nothing to judge or to be a jury for. It's important to reiterate that CRWG is not in any case a decision-making body. Any changes to the Constitution are decided by the full Council. If Council wished to change its current local arrangements, that would be a decision, again, for the whole Council. Gary, do you have a supplementary? You're muted. You're muted, Gary. Can you unmute?
Ah, yes, my apologies.
Lovely, thank you.
Thank you for your answer, Pauline. But when I look at scrutiny in an executive model, from a scrutiny perspective, as I would be looking at it, I find it quite interesting. The executive work, under the executive model, the executive, as you well know, the executive works under a corporate model, and that corporate model takes advice. It then passes that advice that goes through a group process where it goes through a 3-line whip, as is the norm. Now, when you have a CRWG consisting of the leader, the deputy leader, another member of the executive as 3 of the 4, and then you go into the standards board and you see the same.
Can you get to your question, please, Gary?
It's part of my, well, I won't ask a question, Pauline, if you want to interrupt.
A long question.
All right.
What's the essence?
Would you agree with me that the CRWG and the standards model are not the best example of democracy as we see it, And would you agree also that the current model makeup of the Standards Committee and the CRWG makes overview and scrutiny monitoring difficult for you to do in your present form? Having said that, I will add, I went to an overview and scrutiny meeting on Monday and tonight, and I think you are both excellent bodies and doing a wonderful job. But how you oversee, although it's legal, how you oversee a body that consists of the leadership of the council, I find it difficult. Anyway, I will say no more.
I will answer that then, Gary. And no, I don't find any difficulty in that. And certainly I, as chairman of this scrutiny committee, find no barriers at all to scrutinising anybody or any part of the organisation. Just you mentioned the Standards Committee in the same breath. They perhaps are slightly different, but I think the thing that's common between them is that every one of us agreed at full council meetings, two in fact, certainly two with regards to the Standards Committee, we all agreed that that membership was acceptable. So if there is any blame, then every single one of us is culpable. And you will remember that the leader and the executive member stood down immediately and took immediate action on the Standards Committee. And the other one, the CRWG, goes to full council for discussion anyway. So I take your point, but I'm afraid I can't agree with it. Thank you very much. Right then, let us move on to item 76, which is a very good report by Neil about improving overview and scrutiny of the work programme and the monitoring and reporting of what we've already decided. So if you'd like to get that up on your screens or wherever your agenda is. I've got one question, but I'll ask if anybody else has got any others first. Sarah.
Hi, thank you. Thanks for the report, Neil. I think it was me requesting this, so really appreciate it. There were two things I just wanted to pick up on. Firstly, the horizon scanning ideas, just so flipping over to them now. I think the first one you've got in the report this is on page 47. I think it's a really good idea. I'm quite happy with that. The second idea that you've got on there is important, but it doesn't ascertain how this would be facilitated. So it implies that meetings are actually taking place at the moment, and I don't know if they are. I'm not aware of how we're actually engaging with the executive and the senior leadership team on what's coming up. So I guess I'd like to know actually what is happening at the moment with regards to that and how we would actually facilitate this at the moment. Who's going to go to these meetings, what format, how frequently they are. That would be really useful to know. That's my first point. The other one is about the tracking overview and scrutiny recommendations. And I think what you've put in there about the action tracker for what we're doing is really good, and I'd like to see that. What it hasn't touched on is the recommendations that we as a committee are making to the executive. We are not so much getting that feedback. So I've used this example before. We did a task and finish group looking at the adoption of estate infrastructure. We made recommendations that went to executive and went through. We don't know if they've been implemented, how that's going, and actually if those recommendations are being done. And there needs to be some kind of facility to sort of feed that back, whether that's having an annual report or having certain things that we've made recommendations on come back at a later date to review how it's going. I'd like your suggestions and ideas, please. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments?
I was hoping that Neil could maybe answer the questions, please.
Do you want Neil to respond to that?
Yes, please. Thank you.
Okay, then, Neil, if you could.
Okay, so in terms of the protocol, that was agreed at the end of 2019, and with everything that happened last year, we didn't really make any progress So none of those meetings have really taken place. So the suggestion is we now start to get those meetings properly set up, and that will be one of my roles to get that going. And it will be meetings between the executive and the various chairmen of the scrutiny committees. So the aim is to try and get that progressed, because that would hopefully lead to more informed work programming as we can talk to exec members about what is coming up. So that's the first point.
Just very quickly on that, Neil, before you go on to the second point, that's great. So does that mean, so in this case, that would be the chairman going to those meetings, and would we have a report coming back to the committee with the information coming back that we can then discuss as a committee as a regular item then to decide out of those discussions what we take forward? Is that what you're suggesting?
Well, I think it would be useful if the various chairmen reported back on the outcome of those discussions and any points arising. That would help to inform and keep everybody up to date what's happening.
Perfect, thank you.
I can confirm, Sarah, that we're waiting for a date as we speak. In fact, I asked Neil about it earlier in the week.
And on the second point.
Yeah, go on.
As an example, we had the grass cutting review a couple of years ago, and officers were asked to come back and update the committee on what had happened. Yes. So I think that model worked very well. So we could use that, for example, on the infrastructure report and any other reports. So invite officers maybe 6 months later to come back and just explain exactly what they've done with regard to the recommendations.
Yeah,
generally, when we do have something of great importance, we do ask for it specifically to be back, and we generally fix on a meeting when it'll come to. But it should be a little bit more formalised, I think.
Could I just ask on that? I think really well with the grass cutting. I think it's a good idea. We're not going to be able to do on everything we make recommendations for. That's the only thing. We're just not going to have the time in the meetings. So if we do it for certain ones of importance like that, would it be possible to have maybe some kind of report back on some of the other ones, so we can just understand how things are progressing just more generally?
Yeah, I was going to say that when we get the progress report, it shouldn't open the way for another long discussion, because should we need another long discussion, we would have to agenda that for a different meeting. It really is just a report back that something is happening. Okay, I've got Jim and then Guy and then Andrew. Jim.
Just like to say thank you, Neil. I think it's a really good step forward and a really good suggestion. And the proof will be in the pudding when we start using it. Thanks, Neil.
Okay. And then Guy.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, I want to echo what's previously been said. Neil's done a fantastic job in creating this report. Someone got bored. And I think this is definitely going to be a good way forward. And it's something that I've tried to do quite a few times on a few smaller items like burials that we've been doing for the last year on community and corporate. I think this is definitely a good way of improving the work program and the monitoring and reporting, and it should all wrap up into this as well.
Yeah, we certainly always used to monitor things in this way years ago on scrutiny, so it's good that it's coming back to them.
And we also need to remember that we do have some capacity to do to talk about from Monday's community and corporate meeting. We have got the election overview. We received that from Andrew Moulton, but at the same time of the meeting, the audit committee are already sitting in on that as well. So that is an item that I've suggested that we should have as a joint audit and overview and scrutiny, because audit put it on the risk register for this year. So it's covering two birds with one stone, which that will be late summer, I suspect, as an item. But yeah, this is a very good way forward, I think.
Thank you. And your daughter's got a big contribution to make as well, by the look of it.
Yeah, she's highlighting my post-it notes.
Andrew.
Yeah, I'd just like to echo what's the thanks that have already been given tonight for this very, very useful report. I'd just like to ask a question or make a statement in relation to the tracking, which to provide feedback on the actions. I think this is really, really important. And my question stroke comment is what sort of, I think we need to be really mindful that in some instances, the time frames over which this tracking will need to continue could actually be quite considerable, sometimes many years, after the initial decisions were made. Other times, of course, the actions will follow and be completed, much sooner. But it's just an observation that this tracking process, which I think is really, really useful and big step forward, is probably a little bit more complicated than it might at first appear.
Any comment, Neil?
Well, we'll start doing it, Chairman, and then obviously we will learn and improve as we go along. I think that's got to be the aim.
It could be a very iterative process, couldn't it? Paul.
Thank you, Pauline. Yes, I'd just like to reiterate, really good piece of work, Neil, and a big thanks to any other officers who've been involved in this. It was a nice, easy read as well of the report and the document. Just on the tracking, I thought of reporting back as an overview, and then if we needed to pick any particular item that needed to be looked at further for scrutiny, then we could do so. And as Andrew said, certain things won't happen for several years, like some of the estates and infrastructure stuff, where others will be on a more regular basis. But I thought, as an overview, there might be nothing on some of them, but certainly some things on others, and we just scrutinise those if need be. Just one minor point, on page 51, you've got point 17, relevant documents must be provided within 10 days. Is that calendar days or working days? Just want to get that,
days.
Make sure everybody knows what we're doing.
Is that right, Neil? Is it working days?
Well, I think it's, as it says, 10 days, so I'm assuming it's calendar days.
Calendar days, yeah. Okay, thanks very much.
Right, no further hands up, so just a couple of things, one point I want to make and one question. The point is that I think this will give us what we were asking for at last meeting, particularly the attendance of the executive member at the correct committee at the beginning of the municipal year, to outline, as far as they know, what they're going to be considering. Because I think it was Sarah made the point, we're sometimes taken unawares when we realise that something is suddenly about to happen and we haven't had a chance to look at it if we'd wanted to. So it should help us to set the whole programme more successfully, I think, for the following year. My question was on page 47, Neil, in the update column, I know this is only an example that you put in and it's very useful. Could we, in that update column, have a date by which it might be completed or by which some milestone might be met?
Yes, by all means, Chairman.
Okay, thank you. Is there anything else then anyone wants to say or to ask? In which case, we'll go to the recommendations. We have actually considered it, so we don't really need to do that.
Can I ask, Chair, because the recommendation is to consider, are we actually just talking about adopting these, and in which case we probably need to set a recommendation that states that?
Well, should we change the recommendation to say that we thank Neil for the report and we accept the recommendations in it?
Yeah, I'm happy with that.
I'm happy with that.
I'm happy to second that.
Happy with that.
Okay, so let's change that recommendation, Neil, to say thank you to Neil, because it did take some work, I'm sure. So thank you to Neil for creating the report, and we agree with the suggestions that are in it. Anybody against that? Okay, in which case, thank you, Neil, and then we'll move on. The Overview and Scrutiny Annual Reports, page 77. They're quite lengthy, and there's one from each of the committees as well as the main management committee. I have looked at them in advance and I was happy with what they said, but is there anybody that wants to make any comments or suggestions about any of them?
Sorry, Pauline, I thought that showed last year's report.
Did you? Neil, can you clarify?
Yeah, the reports for 2021 and they go to the March council meeting. So it's looking back over the past year.
Yeah, they are current ones, Alison. They're what we've been doing over this last year. And they're dated February 2021. So yeah, I think I'm certain they are current ones.
Well, I haven't signed mine off, or never mind seen it, so that's what surprised me.
Have you've read it, I presume, your bit?
Well, when I looked at it, okay.
Well, no, you must be happy with it. So, can I suggest that offline you chat to Neil about?
I'm just like losing it. I've got a lot of things to do.
Make. And is that the case for the other committee chairman as well?
No, you're quite right. I'm sorry.
I'm happy with mine.
It is this year's. It does cover what we did.
Ken, happy with yours?
Yeah, it seems accurate.
Brilliant. So we're all content with that then, Neil. Thank you very much. Right, and then let's therefore move on to item 78, the current executive and individual executive member decision forward programmes. Any comments on that? No?
Sorry, I've just put my hand up, Pauline.
Oh, sorry, I missed it, Sarah. Go ahead.
No, it's all right. I was trying to get off the ModGov looking at it. It was a couple of things. Actually, I think ModGov has updated since I read this first time because the equality plan wasn't on there and it's now on there, so it's obviously updated. There's also the arts and culture strategy is missing, unless I'm just double checking again. It's supposed to be going to the March meeting and I cannot see it on there.
Sarah?
Yeah.
We did arts and culture on Monday night with community and corporate.
Yes, so this is the exec forward plan.
Exec forward plan, apologies.
Yeah, so it's supposed to be on the exec in March and it's not. I did email Grant Thornton from before the previous meeting. He said, oh yes, I forgot, I'll make sure it's on there, and it's still not on there. So I just wanted to check that it is definitely on there. But this is part of the problem. It is coming up, but it's not showing in the forward plan, and it should be if we're obviously deriving some of our scrutiny from these forward plans.
But it's been scrutinised by Guy's group.
Yeah, considering the content of it and the feedback from every member of the committee, especially from me, described it as glowing. Yes. In terms of the content, it was then basically effectively how do we manage it going forward in terms of the scrutiny of it going forward. And thank you, Sarah, because I know that you did a lot of work with Shirley and Charlotte Haytham-Taylor on this. It is I'm going to be writing my own personal notes to the recommendation to the executive when it does come up in March. So if it's not on there, I'm going to start chasing people.
No, that's fine. And I did have a chat with Robin Cox, the vice chair, about it, and I know that it was good feedback. The point was it's not been on the forward plan. It should be, and it was me that suggested it go on to one of the scrutiny committees to be considered. If it wasn't for me mentioning it, would the function even have known about it to put it onto the forward plan, which obviously relates to the previous item? I guess I'm making the point that these should always be on the forward plan, and we need to make sure that the executive are doing that. That's the point I'm making.
We've moved on anyway.
Cool.
Thank you. Okay, then the next item, our own committee work programme, our own and the other scrutiny committees. Looking at our own scrutiny management committee to begin with, we've got the 31st of March. That's the only meeting now, except of course it's the 23rd of March, not the 31st. But you all know that. Any comments on what we'll be looking at there? No. Okay.
Sorry, I'm haven't taken my hand down. Sorry, I just wanted to, I'm just checking nothing's changed. Now we were supposed to have, where was it? We're supposed to have the WBC website, but it's actually now put in other items underneath. Can I clarify if that's actually on the March agenda or not?
Yeah, that's a good point, because I was told it would be ready for the March one. Have you got any information on that, Neil?
I have, yes. I contacted development officers, but because of COVID, there have been delays in progressing it. So they would rather wait until later on in the year when they've got something concrete to come to the committee with. So that's why I moved it onto the list underneath.
Okay.
That's helpful.
Secondly,
I know that they were anxious that they should get it right before they sent it to anyone to have a look at. So
yes.
They have been very busy, I know. So it'll be there then, Sarah.
But later on, the other thing is, I suddenly realised that for tonight's meeting, and it dawned on me only the other day, we were supposed to have the customer care strategy / customer charter that was supposed to be coming today. So do we know what's happened to that?
I think that's in the same bracket as the website development. I think the same people were working on it. So I assume that's the case. Is that right, Neil? And if it is the case, can that also be put in the list of other items?
Yes, that is the case, and I can add it to the list as discussed.
Yeah.
Thank you. The only other thing was, I know that we've got for the future the development of the co-produced anti-poverty strategy. I noticed that there is some consultation work going on at the moment. There's been a very small survey on the consultation page, and there is someone going out talking to some of the anti-poverty charities. I wonder if we should be looking at I mean, I don't want us to look at this at a stage where it's too late for us to have any impact on it. I think we should be looking at this at a much earlier stage at the beginning and looking actually at this whole consultation process. So I would certainly next time appreciate a report, if it's possible, on how we're actually managing the consultation aspect of this to ensure that this is done properly and fully co-produced. Given that they're starting to do it already, I'm hoping that should be quite straightforward.
I think we'll probably be looking at that at the next meeting when we look at our own general forward programme. So shall we leave it till then?
Well, at the next meeting, I was hoping we could actually have a small item actually in that meeting on this. If we wait until then to request it, it's a bit late. If they're in the process of actually looking at how we consult at the moment, this is the time to get in there and do it.
Well, yes, there is, and I'll let Neil explain because he's very thorough at this.
Thank you.
Neil, would you like to?
Yeah, well, certainly I can ask Laura if that's possible, just a brief report outlining the process for the consultation, and I'll let you know if that's doable.
Yeah, I mean, given that they're doing it, I'm hoping it should be quite straightforward. Yes, please, I would like to have that on there, please. Thank you.
Okay.
Can I also just comment on another couple of points, please, Chairman?
Your hand up anyway, so it's about to come to you.
Yeah, on the list for next time, we've got equality strategy. But I think as that's going to go to executive before the meeting, it would be more useful to put that back a couple of months because obviously there's a big action plan attached to it, and then we can start to scrutinise the implementation of the action plan, maybe in the summer.
Well, scrutinise the progress that's already been made.
Yeah.
As per the last item but one.
Yeah, if that's okay with the committee.
Makes sense. Yep. Okay then. Andrew, you've got a hand up.
Sorry. Yeah, I just wanted to clarify Sarah's point. So what's been agreed, if I've understood correctly, is that there will be an item on the forward programme in the next meeting looking at the consultation process for the development of the co-produced anti-poverty strategy. If that's correct, could I just add also that I think this is a case in point where it is particularly important that we do have an officer available who can talk us through this and answer queries. So if we could ask for an officer presence, please.
Yeah. Okay, I'm sure Neil's taken that on board. Right then, shall we move on to the next page? Children's Services. Alison, have you got any comments on that, or is it as you would expect to see?
I believe it is as I would expect. No, it's what we expected to see. We do have an executive briefing meeting at the beginning of March, just for an hour, so that officers can just make us far more informed so that we're able to ask better questions.
Okay, thank you. Community and corporate overview and scrutiny. Guy, are you happy with that?
Yes, Chair. Next meeting is going to be mostly around the police and fire. We will be in Purda, but thankfully, because it's the police and fire and it's operational matters, we do get away with it, a bit like me having a budget meeting in the middle of a general election in 2019. So
yeah, I'm really pleased to see those two people going to your scrutiny committee. They do occasionally go to the full council, but not often enough, I don't think, and it takes up time. So I think this is a great place for it.
A credit to Callum and the rest of the team for twisting arms behind the scenes.
Okay, health overview and scrutiny. Ken.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, it's what it is there. We've got a busy meeting, and I think on the 17th, because there's quite a few interesting subjects there on the self-harm and the suicide prevention. We haven't looked at that in quite a while, so this has been on the cards for a long time, so it's good that that one's going ahead. There's on the currently unscheduled, we're still waiting for our dental services during COVID reform, someone to come in for that, but I think that one may drift out because it's all, I think the problems that we're experiencing with it has gone. So that said, yeah, that's about it for that meeting.
Yeah, the mental health one is really important, isn't it?
Yes, exactly.
I'm glad we're looking at that. Okay, does anybody have anything else they want to say on any of those three committees' programmes? Lovely. In which case then, let's move to the penultimate item, which is a report from Alison, who chairs the Task and Finish group on climate emergency, just to give us an update as to what we've been doing. Thank you, Alison.
Thanks.
That's not on my agenda.
Oh no, I wasn't muted. Sorry. So we've met 3 times now. Members of the committee being myself, Andy Croy, Andrew Mickleborough, Malcolm Richards, and we've welcomed Pauline Hellier-Simons. We're in a refreshed and revised going forwards. Pauline's replacing Keith Baker. We haven't changed the terms of reference, so we continue to scrutinise the CEAP, the emerging targets. We're very, very keen all the time to assess what the plan is doing to reduce the carbon footprint. You know, everything in it has got to be able to be measured so it can demonstrate its contribution to getting to net zero in 2030. We've decided to look at 3 particular areas. We can't look at the whole plan, so we are going to focus on looking at what is the process chosen of local deliberation, you know, how we're getting public impact to plan. I'm sure we all remember this has been discussed at full council in various ways. Second, we're going to look at transport very much, how the local transport plan is taking account of climate emergency. We're going to be hearing from Reading buses, learning more about vehicle charging points and electric vehicles. And then the third very important thing is about behaviour change, because that is what's going to drive this. We need all of our residents and our businesses to feel invested, to feel that they are part of the change. What the borough is doing relating to road transport, domestic heating, diet, modes of transport, just to create, to see what the borough is doing in the bigger picture to make sure the public understand and are engaged. So we have invited a range of experts. We've got Professor Paul Chatterton coming to us again. I can't remember all of them right now. And we are going to also possibly expand the committee. We'll be agreeing that in the next couple of days by email, because unfortunately our meetings are planned for 2 till 4 and we've gone on past 4:30 and we had to finish today. I'm happy to answer any questions about what we're doing. Sarah,
Sarah's hands up.
Thank you. Yeah, no, it sounds really interesting. I firstly wanted to raise that the LGA yesterday launched some tools that are specifically about behaviour change in climate emergency. So they've been getting some behaviour change scientists in to help. So I'll send the link over for that that's just been launched, which will be quite helpful, I hope. My question is, it sounds great. It sounds like you're doing a lot, and that there's going to be a lot to look into there. Does the Task and Finish group have the capacity to go into that deep dive over 3 quite distinct areas?
Well, Sarah, we're always coming back to terms of reference, that we're not here to explore new areas. What we're always doing is scrutinising the climate emergency action plan that we've got, how realistic it is, whether the targets it's setting are measurable and achievable. So often the experts giving evidence, we're asking them, to consider the plan that we've got and what we're doing and how it's measured. Well, it's not. We're all so interested in lots and lots of areas, but we keep having to pull ourselves back to, what our focus is, our plan, and what the borough can influence, and whether our plan is going to achieve that, because we're on the journey to 2030, but we've got to keep on a straight track to be able to do that.
I assume it's the working group that's looking at what Sarah's just raised, sort of development issues. Andrew.
Yes, thanks, Alison, for your report. At the very end of today's meeting, there was some discussion about an issue to do with membership of the Task and Finish group. Is it still appropriate to comment at all on that? For you to make a comment on that, or? Well,
I believe we'll be sent around by email, because of course one member wasn't present today, but we should be confirming that in the next day or 2.
Okay. Thank you.
What we have agreed to do following the last OS management, and Neil's already actioned it, is to share the notes of each meeting with all of the OS management committee. So, I mean, everything I just said, you're probably all aware of, because, you have been sent the notes of the last 3 meetings. Or 2 meetings. No, 3 meetings.
Yep.
Sorry, I thought we decided to add Sarah. I thought that's what the vote was on.
Neil?
I think we'd satisfied that the political balance thing.
Yeah, I think you're right. It was.
The political wouldn't matter because you as chair got casting votes.
No, I think you're right. I think yes, I think Neil was going to write to Sarah at the end of that. So yes, so we are going to welcome Sarah into the group as a member.
Alison was about emailing round, am I right?
No, I think we did supersede that when we did decide that we would have a vote, and we all voted in favour.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you very much. We need to keep that meeting to 2 hours.
Yes, thank you very much.
It's a daytime meeting.
Very hard on that, and I appreciate the update report.
It was 2.5 hours at least. At least 2.5 hours, Alison.
I think it's a daytime meeting. People with full-time jobs, you can book the time out until 4. It's difficult to extend those meetings.
Well, we had 2.5 hours today, didn't we?
I don't know whether maybe at some point it might be worth considering having them a little bit later, so anyone who's at work could join in. But anyway, that's a discussion for another place. So. Finally then, it's to agree the date of the next meeting and to remind you that it's at 7 on the 23rd of March, not the 31st. And finally, can I thank all of you very, very much for putting up with my appearances and disappearances at the beginning of the meeting, and especially big thanks to Alison for taking over, giving up the chair, taking over again, and generally keeping things moving. So I do apologise for that. Wi-Fi's been giving a lot of trouble lately. But anyway, we managed to get the meeting done. So thanks ever so much for your patience with my appearing and disappearing. And that's the end of the meeting. Thank you very much, all of you, for coming.
Thank you.
Good night, everybody.
Thanks.
Bye-bye.